Published in 2016, Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad is a Pulitzer Prize and National Book Award-winning novel that reimagines the historical Underground Railroad as a literal, subterranean train system. Blending historical fiction with magical realism, the novel follows Cora, an enslaved woman who escapes a Georgia plantation and embarks on a harrowing journey through a dystopian version of antebellum America. Whitehead uses allegory, symbolism, and brutal realism to expose the systemic cruelty of slavery, the persistence of racism, and the myth of American freedom. Through Cora's journey, the novel explores not only the horrors of slavery but also the psychological, emotional, and social legacies of racial oppression in the United States. Georgia. The beginning. The story begins on the Randall Plantation in Georgia, where Cora, a young enslaved woman, lives a brutal and isolated life. Her mother, Mabel, escaped when Cora was a child, leaving her behind. This abandonment haunts Cora and shapes her distrust and independence. Cora is treated as an outcast even among the other enslaved people, partially because of her mother's legacy and her own defiant personality. When Caesar, a fellow slave, proposes that they escape together, Cora initially refuses. But after being subjected to increasing violence, she agrees. Escape and the railroad. After killing a white man who tries to stop them, Cora and Caesar reach a station of the Underground Railroad, which in this novel is a real underground railway complete with trains, tracks, and conductors. The fantastical railroad becomes a metaphor for both escape and the uncertain, shifting nature of freedom. Their first stop is South Carolina, which at first appears to be a haven. Cora assumes a new identity and finds work in a museum that depicts slavery in sanitized exhibits. However, she gradually learns that the state is experimenting with eugenics and sterilization of black women under the guise of progress and uplift. Pursued by Ridgeway. Cora and Caesar are relentlessly pursued by Arnold Ridgeway, a fearsome slave catcher obsessed with recapturing Cora. He failed to find her mother years earlier and is now determined not to repeat that failure. Ridgeway embodies the white supremacist ideology of manifest destiny, insisting on the right to control and capture those who defy the established racial order. North Carolina. A nightmare of erasure. Cora flees to North Carolina, which has abolished slavery but replaced it with a policy of racial extermination. In this nightmarish state, black people are hanged in public displays called the Freedom Trail, and white citizens are required to report any black presence. Cora is hidden for months in an attic by Martin and Ethel Wells, a white couple who reluctantly help her. The parallels to Anne Frank are intentional. Cora lives in constant fear, isolated and silenced. Eventually, Ridgeway discovers her. Martin and Ethel are punished and hanged. Cora is captured. Tennessee. Fires and chains. Cora travels in chains through Tennessee, a land ravaged by fires and disease, symbolizing the moral rot of slavery. She is forced to travel with Ridgeway and Homer, a mysterious black boy who assists the slave catcher. Homer is deeply unsettling. Although he is no longer enslaved, he dresses in fine clothes and follows Ridgeway with unwavering loyalty, suggesting how racism can shape identity and complicity. Along the way, Cora attempts to understand Ridgeway's psychology and his belief in order and inevitability. Ridgeway sees the system of slavery as a natural law, while Cora represents its disruption. Indiana. A glimpse of freedom. Ridgeway brings Cora to Indiana, where she is rescued and taken to Valentine Farm, a community of free black people and escaped slaves. The farm is a brief utopia, where Cora experiences education, community, and intellectual discussion. She learns more about her own value and potential outside the framework of enslavement. However, freedom is fragile. Some members of the surrounding white community, and even some within Valentine, argue that such an enclave provokes hostility. Eventually, the farm is attacked by a white mob, and many are killed. Ridgeway finds Cora again, but this time, she resists and escapes. She throws herself into an abandoned underground tunnel, symbolizing both descent and rebirth. Final escape in the future. Cora crawls through the tunnel for miles, emerging bruised and alone. She is picked up by a black wagon driver named Ollie, who is traveling west. The novel ends with Cora, now more mature and resolute, traveling toward an uncertain future, still seeking true freedom. Character analysis. Cora. Cora is a complex and evolving protagonist. Born into slavery, she is shaped by trauma, resilience, and a fierce sense of justice. Her journey is not just physical but spiritual and intellectual. Each stop on the railroad presents a new version of American racism, and Cora's reactions reflect her growing self-awareness and critical understanding of freedom. She is often quiet and introspective, carrying deep pain and loneliness. But she also demonstrates tremendous courage, resisting at every turn those who would define her solely by her status as property. Caesar. Caesar is an enslaved man inspired by radical ideas he read about in literature. He sees escape not just as survival, but as resistance and dignity. Caesar and Cora's relationship is based on mutual respect and necessity, but their bond is cut short when he is captured and killed. Ridgeway. Ridgeway is more than a villain. He is the embodiment of systemic oppression. He sees slavery as natural, ordained, and necessary. His philosophy mirrors American expansionism and white supremacy, and his pursuit of Cora is obsessive. Yet Ridgeway is also human, introspective, philosophical, and even charismatic. His complexity forces readers to grapple with the nature of ideological evil. Homer. Homer is a chilling figure. Though black and technically free, he aids Ridgeway, reinforcing the idea that oppression distorts moral clarity. He represents the internalization of racist structures, and the eerie possibility that even the oppressed can become complicit. Mabel. Though she appears briefly, Mabel haunts the novel. Cora believes her mother abandoned her. Later, we learn that Mabel died in the swamp trying to return to Cora. Her death becomes a symbol of sacrifice and maternal love, complicating Cora's feelings of abandonment. Valentine. John Valentine, the founder of the Indiana community, represents black intellectual and social ambition. His speeches, his books, and his ideals offer a glimpse of what America could be, but also reveal the fragility of such dreams in a hostile society. Themes and analysis. 1. Slavery as a system, not an episode. Whitehead depicts slavery not as a historical moment, but as a systemic, enduring institution with many faces. Each state Cora visits presents a different facet. South Carolina offers scientific racism, North Carolina offers genocide, Indiana offers hope. The novel shows how slavery mutates into other forms, eugenics, white supremacy, capitalism, and how it persists in American culture. By using allegory, Whitehead makes clear that slavery's legacy lives on. 2. The illusion of progress. The literal Underground Railroad is magical, but freedom is not. Each new state offers the illusion of safety, only to reveal another form of control or violence. Whitehead critiques the myth of linear progress, insisting that oppression adapts. Cora's journey is not upward or forward. It is cyclical, disorienting, and full of betrayal. The railroad may move her physically, but true liberation remains elusive. 3. Freedom and its price. Freedom is the novel's most central theme, but it is constantly contested and conditional. Cora fights for it, but it comes at a cost: loneliness, violence, loss. Every gain is met with punishment. Whitehead challenges the notion that freedom is a gift. For the enslaved, it must be seized, defended, and often paid for in blood. 4. History and memory. By altering historical details and settings, Whitehead makes the emotional truth of slavery more vivid. The novel's anachronisms, electric trains, medical experiments, are deliberate distortions that expose how historical records sanitize horror. Whitehead invites readers to reimagine American history not as a heroic narrative, but as a cycle of racial violence, resistance, and survival. Cora's story is not just personal, it represents millions of forgotten voices. 5. The role of women. The novel centers Black women's experiences. Cora, Mabel, Ethel, and others reveal the gendered nature of slavery, rape, exploitation, abandonment, and the denial of motherhood. Cora's journey is not just about physical freedom but reclaiming agency and identity as a woman. 6. The railroad as metaphor. The magical railroad is the novel's most famous invention, but it is also its most ambiguous symbol. It represents both hope and danger, mobility and instability, escape and dislocation. By making it literal, Whitehead emphasizes the mechanism of resistance, infrastructure built by the oppressed for the oppressed. But the tracks are unpredictable, the trains infrequent, and the destinations often worse than the departure points. The railroad is less a vehicle to freedom and more a conduit for revelation. Style and structure. Whitehead's prose in The Underground Railroad is elegant, controlled, and unflinching. He avoids sensationalism, instead letting brutality speak for itself. His tone is often coldly detached, making the violence even more disturbing. The structure is nonlinear, with interludes exploring minor characters' backstories. These detours enrich the world and expose how every life is shaped by the system, even those who seem peripheral. The mixture of realism and surrealism allows Whitehead to transcend historical fiction and create moral allegory. Conclusion. The Underground Railroad is a powerful, disturbing, and richly imaginative reworking of the American slave narrative. Through Cora's relentless journey, Colson Whitehead dismantles comforting myths about freedom, progress, and justice. His blending of speculative elements with historical accuracy allows readers to confront the legacy of slavery in a fresh and emotionally potent way. The novel insists that slavery is not past, that racism is not peripheral, and that liberation is not inevitable. Cora, bruised but unbroken, stands as a symbol of resistance, memory, and the enduring fight for dignity. Whitehead has created not just a novel, but a haunting testimony, one that demands readers not only to remember history but to rethink its presence in the present.